Okay, so I am recording now. So Dr. Lipere, what I'm gonna do is just read your bio in order for those who are not familiar with your work to get a sense of what it is that you've done. I know you sent it to me. So for those of you who have not gone to Ulwazi to read the bio, I'm going to read it now. Dr. Refilwe Lipere is a narrative strategist, a storyteller, playwright, drama therapist, and facilitator. She's an award-winning writer, director, embodied learning practitioner, curriculum developer, and strategy advisor to multifunctional clients in global settings. She travels across the world performing, presenting, and facilitating workshops on the connection between aesthetics and politics with a focus on dynamics of race, gender, and coloniality. Her latest play, The Way to a Man's Heart, is part of an anthology titled Hauntings. She is currently guest editing drama therapy review journal titled Breathing Beyond Borders, Racial Justice and Decolonial Healing Practices. She is also an author in numerous anthologies. Her plays have been performed in multiple international stages. These include Between Sisters, Postcards, Bodily Preserves, which was performed in Germany, South Africa, and the USA. Money for Shoes, performed in Botswana, South Africa, and Swaziland. Heading Out, the US and the UK. Songs for Kwezi, the US and the UK. Disappearing Act, US, Botswana, and South Africa. And Black in the Box, US and Canada. Her work using therapeutic theater weaves history, statistics, and personal narratives to address issues of social injustice, trauma, intersectional identities of Black women, and the performance of labor. Refilwe uses performance and playwriting as research, looking at how race performs and thereby frames and shapes our understanding and interpretation of the world. She contextualizes her work within the broader scholarship of Black feminist aesthetics and drama therapy, looking at how we absorb, interpret, and are moved by stories. She is a graduate of New York University and Wits University, a Think Fellow, and Ford Foundation alumni. Welcome again, Dr. Lipere. I'm going to hand over to you. So people are impressed with your resume, Doctor. Some people saying, wow, what a resume. Yeah.
Wow, Linda, I'm like, wow, yes, Ken.
You've done a lot. You've done so much. Thank you so much for all your beautiful, beautiful work. And I have the book. I still need it signed, Yeah. So welcome. Tell us a bit more about this. I mean, what you do, why you do it, how you got here.
All right. So I guess I think maybe if we think about um I am one of those children who are born from the time of community theater. And I think a lot of the times when I think about where I am right now, I'm quite amazed at because I don't think at that time I thought or I even imagined myself to be a theater maker or a theater practitioner. It was just my dad needing us to get out of the house and do something. So we did a lot of, and I think it's such a generous, now that I think about it, it was such a generous space to grow up in the time where people were offering their time and their skills. I mean, I remember Nom Samanaka, who's Tata Manaka's wife, and she used to teach us dance, like just offer it as a, as her talent, just offering us how to dance. So I come from that space where it was in the streets, we would meet and we would rehearse for Show Road to Fame. We never went to Show Road to Fame, but we were always rehearsing that one day when we go there, we must be ready. Your eyes must be out. Your smile must be ready. You are going to be a star.
And a star, right?
So that's where I come from. And then somehow I ended up doing drama at Wits after having done a couple of courses before. So I did IT, I did tourism, so I did a whole lot of other courses. And then finally, one day I was like, you know what, I am going to study a bara degree. So I got a BA in drama, and from there, then the world like really opened up into how I function and into how I understand and embody the world and how I get to it. So thinking about thinking about that generosity of having been embodied at a very young age, knowing from very different people, knowing that I know something, even though I don't know what I know, but I know and I can make and I can create. And there's these adults who trust us to make things, to create concerts um, and and take care of their children and run community theater groups for years. And somebody just trusted us to say, here's my kid, take care of them, teach them something. And we just trusted ourselves to say, okay, I think I know something. And so we're going to teach each other. So yeah, that's how I come to where I am now in what I do.
That's so beautiful. I mean, how then do you get to this thing that we are calling embodied reading?
Again, so what I was thinking about after our conversation the last time was how I come, like as I said, I come from church and spaces where I could create community theater, I could do this, but most importantly in church was that we all worked very hard to be the reader of the scripture. So I went to a Roman Catholic church, and so there's two moments where the congregation gets to read scripture for the priest on behalf of everyone. And so we literally worked very hard because I was not going to be an altar person. I didn't want to be an altar server, but I knew I wanted to do something. And so reading was a very interesting thing for me, and I wanted to read all the time. Then I got to high school, and one of my teachers said reading, and then we learned that reading is, if you read out loud, it means you're slow or you're remedial or you must be, you shouldn't be reading out loud. No, 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 no. You people who are sophisticated, who are clever, read in silence. They sit there in the corner. They take in the book, and there I was going, mouthing the words, trying, because at church we read the King James, so we were reading thou, thou, they, thee, though, right? And I'm trying to mouth everything. She's like, no, no, no reading like that. So I learned early on to really put that down and not to read out loud. But then I got to varsity and we struggled with the readings. And so me and my friends really struggled with the readings because I had never done these things. I didn't know what hegemony was, Stuart Hall, stereotypes. I mean, we're like, yeah, we appreciate it, but what is interpolation? Like, no, right? So in a way to get through it was I used to read because we do scripts. So when we read our scripts, you read them aloud, you learn your lines by someone reading your lines back to you. So in terms of script reading and learning your lines, if that is the way we are learning and I can learn my lines by sharing it with someone, we started doing that. I started reading long passages of all of the things that we're reading. Naum Chomsky, all of those things I was just reading to my friends during, they would be doing their hair, they would be in res, doing something, washing their clothes, whatever we're working through, trying to understand the readings. And from there, I realized I got to know so much of my work. I got to learn so much because I really struggled a lot with exams, right? But when I learned it like that, it's like I read it out loud and it's as if it's a speech and suddenly I'm like, yeah, I've got an essay for the exams. I know what I'm going to write for the exams. I don't know my job, but I've got lines.
Right.
Yeah, and it came from there. And last year during COVID, my students were struggling with having to do the work, because they have to now self-study. And a lot of times, if we're in class, I'm able to direct them, okay, now we're going to read this and we're going to read that. And then, people are reading, but then when they're alone at home and you don't see them like now, and you go, so how was it? Everybody just goes,
yeah.
it's on you. Like, move me, and I'm just like, I'm not that kind of a person. So then I thought about how about I get a couple of my friends and co-conspirators and to read the readings that we have and record themselves reading the readings, and then students would be much more interested in the reading. And I think it was one, it was that, but two, and then I remembered that a lot of them, our students are performers, and suddenly, because they were also wanting to read out aloud, and they were much more engaged in the readings, and they were, and also what it did also for those who are not very confident about work or schoolwork, suddenly they were part of a much larger group. They're not alone anymore, because what COVID did was isolate us a lot. So they were not alone, and they were not, and also now we move away from this idea that reading out loud is for remedial learners, or you are, but it actually helps with memory, with remembering, with what do you know? It affirms that you know something. It affirms that I actually like this reading, and the feeling that I get about it, or even I don't like this reading. So that suddenly students were able to come back and say, I didn't like that reading. When all of these other years, I gave them a reading, they read it, they just said, okay, and agreed. But suddenly last year, I started getting responses of, I didn't like that reading, or, ooh,
What's up?
what happened?
We can still see you. Dr. Lipira? Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think maybe she lost network or
Her
something.
connection, her connection. All right, all right, all right. So I see your question, Benjamin, regarding embodied reading being comparable to assuming the role of narrator. I'm just waiting for Dr. Lipere to come back to us. How many of you have listened to the reading by Katlego Chale, or soon to be Dr. Katlego Chale? How many of you have had a chance to listen to Katlego reading for us? Anyone? Has anyone gone on SoundCloud? Okay, I'm not seeing. It wasn't the full chapter, right? I mean, it's okay. Someone is, yes, I did. Okay. Oh, okay. So a number of you. So it's in two parts. Okay, I'm just accepting. Dr. Lipire. Welcome back.
Thank you. My internet decided to.
Okay, it's okay. It's all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that happens. It's part of the world that we're living in now. We have to do things. So I was just checking how many students have actually listened to the soon-to-be doctor, Katlego Chale's reading of Peterson's text. So that's where we were. But one of the students actually asked a very important question, Benjamin Schaffer. They are asking if embodied reading is comparable to assuming the role of the narrator.
I think so. I think I think if we think about how we learned as children, especially if you think about psychological education, they think about how kids learn through suggestion. So if you say ba, and then you go ba bread, or ba baby, ba Betty, that's how we learned. Like we go and apple. So it's a guidance of, you hear the sound, you hear how it links up, then you see the A, then you link it to the word. So you hear it first before you can learn it. So I think it is very much linked to the idea that as a narrator, and when we were read to as children, or whoever read to us, is that we associate that kind of learning with that kind of way of learning, where it is always about somebody else hearing someone speak to you and then engaging with it. There's something also about what I'm also learning now, is especially through the work of my PhD, is that the body knows things that the mind doesn't always conceptualize. So if you think about a blackout, like your body went through something that your mind doesn't remember. Like your mind is not interested in trying to remember it, but your body would have done some things and would have moved and had done things, but your mind doesn't remember. So therefore, there's something about the body. And when you think about, I mean, one theorist makes this idea of we know how to ride a bike, not because we read how to ride a bike, but because you rode a bike. You can't say, I know how to ride a bike, because theoretically, if you put a leg and then you put the other one, then you put, then no, if you don't know how to ride a bike, if you can't ride a bike, right?
Absolutely.
Which is an embodied act. And so if we're thinking about, there's a number of things that we know how to do as beings, as human beings, by being in them and embodied in them, why not the work that we're learning, us being in it, right? The readings that we do. And so in a way, you are creating an environment where your learning is not just a eye thing, but it's a ear, smell, feeling. You're feeling it. And the more you feel, and if we think about our own experiences, a lot of times when in my work in drama therapy, we always just imagine trauma that the body remembers. And so therefore we're always on the body remembers trauma. But think about it, the body all remembers joyful moments. So a smell brings out, you remember your mother's cooking, you remember, you know, I mean, some of us, when you smell weed, you remember groove, you're like, ooh, I miss groove. Hey, groove, guys, I miss groove, right? There's joy that a smell brings. It brings literally that feeling of you wanna, you know, there's a sound of a song, and literally the song wants you to do something, even if you're like, you know, nah, I'm not into it. But there's certain songs, you know, this song is just gonna be like, hey, my body will move. So there's an embodiment that even when you don't, the way we learn, the way we function in the world is to embody things, is to be in it fully, from smell, sight, feeling of it on your skin. So I think that for me, that's why then reading, when somebody reads out loud, it's an emotional experience. So somebody's reading and they're trying to move you, and they're doing the work also. And when you are reading for yourself, even you are doing the work yourself, right? You are doing the work of trying to move yourself, because you're like, oh, that is a line. That I could have said that line differently. I could have done this differently. And I think that's why for me, the narrator role is quite important, because the narrator role also takes you on a journey and chooses how to take you on that journey. And so you can choose that when you are reading for us, or when you're reading for others.
Thank you so much for that. And I know that part of the work that you do is to speak about the body as archive, seeing as, you know, we are in a course that centers around this notion of archiving. Can you speak a bit more about that? And then I'll come to Christella and Benjamin Banzile.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the idea that the body remembers. So so when we, in trauma studies and in psychology, we think around that the body has a way of storing memories that the mind sometimes forgets. And so when we think of trauma experiences, the trauma patients always, so PTSD is an embodied experience. So when a person reacts to something, it's not just that it's in their head, but it's also like a visceral reaction. So because of that, I think I've been doing a lot of work and trying to think about how our bodies remember. And I think, and so as I said, the first introduction to us, this was through trauma studies and thinking about how trauma fragments us and how trauma does this. But as I went along, I realized also that there's something about how, and I think about it in terms of a very, having come from a very chronically colonial curriculum, that it fragments you, right? So part of it, as much as we don't say it's trauma, but it does what trauma does. It fragments you. It cuts you up. It says, no, put that one, put yourself outside. And I remember years ago, part of Black in the Box is that the play Black in the Box is this learning where I was trying to understand what happens to this trauma of being Black and having to consistently act white in spaces of universities, and having to put away your Blackness and put it in a box and put it in a box and put it in a box and put it in a box.
Sure.
And so suddenly you're fragmented from yourself and you're not knowing where you are. And as I've grown into the process of thinking about the archive, and thinking about how we know, is that we are sacred texts. So there's things that we do know. So I do know how to. So for example, now my arm is hurt, right? But there's something that my body's doing that I don't know what it's doing. It's healing. It's finding ways of healing that are beyond me, that are ancient, I'm desiring song, I'm desiring movement, I'm desiring things that my body I didn't know I could do. I always thought, because I'm a small person and I'm thin, I always thought if ever I got pregnant or I got hurt, I would be the end of me. I'm gonna be in bed the whole time. I'm just gonna be like lying there. I will not be able to move. I am not the strongest person in the world.
Right.
I will die. Like I was ready to die. When I got out of the hospital, I was like, I'm ready, I'm just gonna lie down. But there's something that the body has done, and my body has found ways of healing, and therefore I'm really much more convinced about its ability for resilience, its ability to archive those people that we know. And so one way I think about it is your own face. You don't own your face. And like you grow up and I'm like, I look at myself, I look like my mother, I look like my grandmother. Like it's an archive, guys. If we didn't know that it was an archive, guess what? You're holding someone else's image. It's not even yours. You don't even own your own face. So therefore, there is something about that story that when I look at myself, I'm going, yo. Like I remember my dad, I had seen him and my mother divorced now for like 15 years. So I hadn't seen him in 2 years. I went,
Again.
wow.
But we can still see you, Doctor.
Oh, God.
We can see it. Doctor?
Yeah, well, is it me?
Yeah, you. Everything is fine.
Oh, on my side it says I'm on hold. I'm like, I'm on hold.
No. I can see you. So from that point, I just want to go to what students are saying. There's a student called Christella who's talking about this notion of being able to smell, right? That she's saying that it's one of the most powerful tools for memory recall. Benjamin wants to know more about this idea of drama therapy, right? You are one of the few drama therapists in the country, right?
Okay, can you hear me? I don't know what's going on with my side.
Yeah,
Everybody is on hold, and I don't know why.
I can hear you.
I'm on hold again.
How are you on hold? Doctor? Okay. Just typing to her.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yes. We can hear you. Doctor?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can you all hear Dr. Lipere? Man, the internet sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna wait.
Let me ask the people in my house to get off the internet, and then maybe it will be easier.
Sure.
And then I will come back. Let me just.
All right. Okay. All right. I can see that a number of you are making comments. Thank you so much for being so engaged with Dr. Lipere. It's really unfortunate that we are having this issue with the internet, right? Yeah, how are you finding it so far? While Dr. Lipere is out of the room, the proverbial room. Anyone?
I'm absolutely hi. I'm absolutely loving this session. Like I'm going crazy sitting here thinking, wow, this is so profound.
Right.
Like, yeah, just so much insightful thoughts and things that I think we think, but we never really conceptualize, like the whole idea of our faces being an archive, I think we've all, looked in the mirror and thought, oh, like, I think I look a lot like,
Right.
or when you're walking down the street and someone says to you, oh no, you look so much like, and it's like, like, yeah, but to think of my face as a historical thing, you know, as something that speaks, you know, into the past, but is now my present, you know.
Mm.
And if I were to obviously have kids and stuff like that, the same thing would be passed down to them. You know, I love it. I love it so much.
Oh, that's really beautiful. That's why I thought it important to bring her in, because there are different ways to think about this notion of archiving, how the body itself is an archive, and there are multiple scholars that have written about this notion. As Talipere is back with us, so doctor, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
No, it's part of life. Hey, it is what it is. So just keep it moving. So someone was asking, Benjamin was asking about your role as a drama therapist. I mean, I remember being in drama school and hearing that, you know, drama therapy actually, I mean, there are very few drama therapists in South Africa.
Yes, but Drama for Life now has kind of like done a lot in terms
So
of
that
like,
was back then, back in the day.
yeah.
The
No,
early-
Drama for Life has done the work now of like catching us up with the rest of the world around the drama therapy.
It's starting again.
And you, you don't like me getting back into the meeting.
But we can hear you. Oh man. Okay, we are back to being frozen. So Benjamin, when Dr. Lipere comes back, oh, okay, can you hear us? You are
I can
moving.
hear you.
Okay, wonderful.
Bye. Anyway, excuse guys.
Yeah, so if you could tell us.
What a
So
crazy
remember
day.
that when I was in drama school, that's when they were still talking about drama therapy as something quite rare in South Africa.
Mm.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so then it was. And you had to go overseas to do it. So that's why we went to NYU. Others went to Rockhampton in the UK. But now Drama for Life, and I know with UJ has opened up an art therapy program also. And at UP, there's a music therapy program. So at least there's a number of, and also Lifikala Podiso has an art therapy community counseling program. So you could also get certified as a community counseling art therapist, Lifikala Podiso, which is in Braamfontein.
Right. So does that influence? So does your practice as a drama therapist influence your academic work? Because also, I mean, we can't run away from the fact that you are a doctor. So I mean, you theorize in so many ways. You theorize beyond just writing these, you know, inaccessible academic works. You go beyond that. So how does that inform what you do as an academic?
So yeah, so drama therapy, because of it focuses so much on part of what it's like therapy, but with using drama tools to work through. So if you're going to talk in talk therapy, in drama therapy, we would use the drama tools, and the drama tools are script, body, costuming. You know, there's a dance therapist who uses dance to work through. You know, a music therapist would use music, and an art therapist would use drawings as a way of entry into your work to work through your issues. So we use theater works, we use theater things. So of course that's how I then theorized, because suddenly my body became an important tool, because as a drama therapist you have to be in the room. You can't, you know, like a talk therapist can always go, okay, it's your stuff. As a drama therapist, you get into the drama with your client. So you're put on as the mother, in the role of a mother or a daughter or a this. You are playing and you're improvising and you're in that role. And as you enroll, you know, enrolling means your body has to, you know, you get into somebody else's world in a way, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the feeling of that person's life, or that's what you feel like, that's what's going on with you. So I think that's why I started, actually it's so much linked to that, because part of that work that I first did with Black in the Box was my work through trying to understand what trauma is to a collective experience of blackness, right? That we all don't experience blackness in the same way, but there is something that we do experience that we know that is traumatic, and that one little experience. So when when therapy wants you to be individual, and you're an individual and you came here as an individual. And in my world, I'm like, yeah, and the hand in the you know, and you know, hey man, you come in a number, you know, and when you come into the room, the feelings that you're getting, the vibe that you're getting is not one that is just like, oh, it's just you alone. Like, you know, when you're feeling like you don't belong, or you're feeling like you're fragmented, or you're feeling like your body is not real, or it's not true, it's not accepted in spaces. So all of those things. So what is it that I am carrying that seems to come with me? So, I mean, for example, moving to the US, it was like I carried this body of a scarred body, or in sociology and stigma, they talk about, you know, like it's as if there's a sign on you, you know. And so Dala, they used to, if you're a prisoner, they sign you. If you're a slave, you get a sign, so that people see you when you're walking in the streets. People see that this one used to be a prisoner. You know, there's a sign on you. And there was something about me thinking about, I wanted to reimagine myself, or conceptualize myself in the space called the United States. And there I was, in the same signal, whatever it was that was on me was there. And I was getting the same reaction, like everyone was just reacting to me in the same way that I was getting reacted to at home. So I was like, wait, there's something about me then that is, I am carrying, there is a bodily thing. And so drama therapy helped to really work through that, and hence the box, the black in the box. And so having to imagine there's a black that I carry around. And sometimes I whip her out because she goes, oops, and I put stack away and I don't try like that. And then sometimes it's just put her away and it's like, oh yeah, yes, no. I'm great. I'm just wonderful.
No,
So,
I no, thank you so much. And isn't it some of us who went into the university, especially as not first language speakers of English, you know, encountering some of this academic work and feeling dislocated by the work in itself. And so it's so important to also ensure that, you know, we engage with people like Abo Pegiziso Peterson, or Prof, you know, because he was very much about thinking about ourselves just outside institutions like the university. And I remember him saying that, I think it was, I imagine that you were also there, because I know, Guti, you got this scholarship as well through the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences. Prof. Peterson said to us that never forget what you knew before coming into the university. Never forget what you knew before coming into the university. And that's pretty much what he is also theorizing around in terms of this chapter, talking about the importance of the experiential Black archive, right? Bringing ourselves into the room, as Dr. Lipere is saying. Dr. Lipere, can you hear me? I want to read some of the comments from students. Dr. Lipere? Okay. It seems like we've lost the... Can I hear you?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm talking about, can I hear me? Can you hear me? So Ubanzile is saying the example with the bicycle is so personal. I still can't ride a bike, but in my head, I think I can. But in reality, it's another story. I like the whole idea of doing and embodying something. And then Cameron is asking a question. They are saying, would it then be pertinent to link the experience of intergenerational trauma to both an embodied experience and as a form of embodied archive?
I think, yeah. So I think part of what I've been trying to work through, especially with embodied reading, as I said, that part of what trauma teaches you, that your body remembers trauma, but also there's something about your body also remembers good things. And part of it has been that, because as much as you accept that your body remembers the bad, your body also remembers the good. So I think part of what we've always focused on is that we've just taken all these bad traumas from our lives, or from our parents' lives, and from whatever. There's an interesting theory by Dr. Joy, I forget her name, Joy G something.
Okay.
And she talks about post slave syndrome, so post-trauma, like a slave, like the idea of that our bodies have remembered the traumas of our parents. The body remembers the traumas of our grandparents. So I do think there is some space for us to think about how we do carry those traumas. But at the same time, also remember their resilience. Our bodies remember their ability to, so that's why I'm interested now in post, in decolonial ways of healing, that we found ways of healing each other and healing ourselves. And there's ways that our bodies know how to, and there's the resilient ways. And there's an interesting concept that someone was sharing the other day around trees and the ability for trees to share resources with each other. So if you have trees in the same area, even not in the same area, the trees and their roots go so deep down that they share resources, they share information, they share that, hey, when are you about to be cut? Yo, I heard them talking about you. They're coming for you. Better uproot yourself, right? They share all of these resources. So there's something about the resilience of, especially when you think about trees that survive in deserts and spaces like that, that there's a shared resource, there's a shared way of living that we've also shared. So as much as we've shared our traumas, and we've shared our traumas and we've archived the pieces of our mother stories, the pieces of our father stories, recipes that they carry, we also archive the good things. I think about, for example, an example I use in my thesis around embodied knowledge is a recipe. So my mother bakes beautiful jam tarts. And they're only that, like only my mother does them, my mother's hand. So then I also, I don't like doing them, but I do them sometimes just as a show off. And everybody's always like, but your mom did it. I'm like, no, it's me. And they're like, huh, John? They're like, your mother's giving me the same recipe, but it doesn't come out. But because I've learned from watching her, from embodying the way she does it. So it's not so much of just that there's a recipe, there's a way that she does it and that I've embodied. So my brother can do the exact same cakes in that way. So that idea that as much as we've embodied when we go in therapy, people talk about they've embodied their mother's ways of thinking about the world, of how they see the world. Yes, we've embodied those traumas, but we've also embodied the other parts, the good stuff, the way they make their food, their taste buds, their flavors, their love for a certain kind of music, their beliefs about, so also the good stuff. So I think there's something about that I'm interested in, that this embodiment is not just an embodiment of loss, and I think that's why the embodied reading was important for me, because part of reading is the sharing of joy. I mean, if you go through all the readings on the platform, on SoundCloud, on the account, you find that there's some that are really awesome. Like people are just sharing. Somebody reads in Xhosa because she wanted to read something. And a lot of my friends are academics. And I was like, read something academic. They were like, no, I want to share something that brings me joy. So I'm going to share something that I like. So they shared a lot of joyous readings rather than just readings that are academic and that are hard or whatever. They're also sharing really important stuff to them. So yeah, so maybe, shall I read the other questions?
Yes, please. I'm just quickly getting my delivery, like the guys here. So 2 minutes.
All right.
Sharp.
Okay, so Christelle asks, did you experience backlash from the drama or therapy arenas for inducting this idea of therapeutic invention in the form of dramatic tools, especially in South Africa, when the therapy itself is still stigmatized to some degree? I'm also quite interested in the possibilities of role in action in the realm of therapy, hence my interest. Yeah, I think there is, so in South Africa, of course, we don't do a lot of therapy. Well, there is, but people don't have the money and access to therapies. But I think we've already, there's, the embodiment is there. So South Africans are embodied people. So if you think about, the latest dance, we are ready to, we are ready for something, right? If you think about the latest song or the latest advert or anything like that, we're already embodied. So it's not a very difficult concept to do. So I do a lot of work with domestic workers in the Randburg area. And so what happens is that when we do work, so we think of it as more of community theater rather than therapy. So we do more of the idea of using theater as a therapeutic tool, but not as, oh no, we're now doing therapy. So we do more like, let's do the work, let's create a play, let's do this. And then we work through whatever's going on in the room. So we are improvising, we are creating, we're making. And as much as they're older women, they're much older. I mean, the group is ranging from 80s, someone who's 80 years old, others who are 70, someone who are 50, 40, and then the youngest is about 29. Is even though we would think that Black women are not so active or they wouldn't be wanting, they're not caring for that. But if you think about it, they've been part of, they're doing work, like they're doing work in their kitchens, they're doing work where they work, they do work in gardens, they have a communal garden there. And so there's a sharing of bodily activities already. So they're already embodied. So in a way that the rejection is not a rejection of therapy as such, but just a rejection of being pathologized. So what we then do is try not to use the space as a pathological space of saying you've got problems or whatever, but to work through in that embodied way and to perform and to create with each other. So that's what we do, because already they're embodied. If you think about it, they're already cleaning and making and creating and cooking for each other and for themselves. And dressing up and doing this. So already their lives are an embodied experience, but it's how do we use that space to explore other things for each other. So if you're thinking about role, then they can enroll other things. Crystalla, you said, do you think the ability to embody helps you understand your clients more and maybe then shift from sympathy to empathy in a way that allows you to help them in a more personal way? Yeah. I think also because of, if we think about therapy, and even like when I became a lecturer or a teacher, like we are taught to be disembodied, you're taught to not be personal with anyone. And a very important thing is you do an ethical training as a therapist to, you're not going to, the ethics of it is don't share, don't tell, don't give, don't. There's a lot of keep yourself out of the room, keep your things out of the room, keep everybody, keep all of that, zip up. But there's something about being able to, so if you've ever been in a play, when you've had to be in a play with somebody for in rehearsals for 2 weeks even, already the personal becomes, they're coming in. You come in, you are tired, you're like, where are you from? Are you okay? Already just saying, hi, how are you? Coming into rehearsal, and it's like, yo, I just had this class. So even if you were like, no, we're here to, you can't. Your body is present, and your body will say your body will say something. And so we know that in theater, you have to be able to trust the person you're with if you're improvising or creating or making it on stage, because anything can come up. So if anything comes up, I must be able to carry you, hold you. So you can't just be dealing with, I remember, I always tell stories, tell a short story. I was in this one play, it was about GBV, and I was acting the battered woman, and then the name of the character was Pindi. My mother's name is Pindi, and she was a battered woman, but I was trying not to be in it really that much. I was like, okay, it is what it is, but it's fine. Then this man who was acting with me as the husband of the battered woman was all along while rehearsing, we're fine, we do. So we had this movement where he has to act like he's about to hit me, and then he has to hit me and then catch me. It was all a movement. It was not supposed to hit me. Basically, it was a whole movement thing, catch me, drop me, all in dramatic ways, very interesting ways, fun. I liked it. How one day he had a problem. His girlfriend, I don't know, broke up with him before he came to rehearsals or something. And he comes into rehearsals, and suddenly he's supposed to like push, drop, and then pull me up. And then this time he just drops me and I fall like, cool. And I'm like, what? What? No. So I think part of that really made me realize that I could feel there was something wrong with him. And then suddenly when we had the conversation, like, oh yeah, no, it's not your mother. I'm not treating you like because I was like, oh my God, I'm in my mother's role now. Oh my God, I hate this. And he was like, no, actually, this was going on with me. And so therefore, there's something about being able to then the truth telling in that moment, of being truthful in our bodies, rather than having to lie and try to perform like, oh, I'm going to perform it, and then his truth then comes out, and it's like, no, my guy, that's not what we're doing now. We are performing and we're trying to work through things. So it was good to talk about it so he could work through it. So the reason I tell that story is the idea that when we perform together, we're also sharing something, we're sharing knowledge, we're sharing information. And when we talk about the trees, sharing information, sharing knowledges, that root system, we're also sharing together. So in that moment of being in performance, we share together. There's a collective effervescence that we're sharing together that then happens between the two of us, or the three of us, or the 10 of us, that when the audience sees it, the audience doesn't just see, that play was lovely. They're also reading the effervescence and the knowledge and the information that's passing through bodies. And I think that's why drama therapy for me is so much more appealing, because there's something else that you're getting as a therapist that the body knows. So even if my mind is going, this one seems like it's telling me the truth, but my body can say, this person is lying and this story is not true. I don't know why he's telling me this story, but okay, let them tell me this problematic lie of a story, but okay, let's go with it. So yeah, I think. All right, I think y'all are now more interested in drama therapy than.
Yeah, I see that. I see that there are a number of comments regarding that. Christella seems particularly interested. It's a highly involved process, which is obviously the point. But how do you debrief and hold the space for yourself after those interactions or therapy sessions in a way that you do not carry the embodied experience of the people you help?
You shake it off. I'm joking. So there's a joke we do in drama therapy circles of, I remember last year a lot with COVID when everyone's like, I might seem okay, but actually all I want to do is walk around the room and shake it off. Because that's how we were taught. Like when you're in class, they go, no, walk around the room and shake it off, walk around the room and shake it off. And you're like, this is not it. It's not enough to walk around the room and shake it off. And you're right. And so part of the work that I do is I do engage in a lot of, and this I got from a lot of the Black feminist work around engaging in art making. So I think of Gloria Anzaldúa, June Jordan, and all of those women who think around the way of working through the moment is through a making of a moment. So I do a lot of making. So part of also embodied reading was a way of making. It's a way of making of, I read out aloud to friends. It's a thing that I do for my friends. I will read them parts of something and send them as voice notes. It's my love language.
It is your love language. Actually, when I was going through something, you came into my office when I was still teaching in history of art, and you brought me a Kolega Putuma's Collective Amnesia. And you said, I'm not sure what to do, but here's a gift. Give me a book.
It's my love. Yeah. It's my love language. So I think that's what I find to do. I read, I do art making, I do collages. So I find a way, yes, to depersonalize, to get out of it. But I also sometimes sit in it, because sometimes it is okay to carry each other a bit. Sometimes you just need to carry someone a bit. And I learned it also a lot with the PhD writing, the way you had friends who'd say, it's okay to ask to let me carry it a bit. And it was not even like her writing my piece, or it was asking, please carry it for me for a bit. And literally just to ask that, like it literally feels like it moved somewhere else and somebody carried it. And while you can then think about other things so that somebody else carries it for a bit. So I think it's also those things that sometimes the kind of ways of us carrying each other is not always in and as I started earlier, that there's something about our education that defragmentizes us, that makes us fragments of each other, and therefore we never learn to be present with each other, and we never learn, even as lecturers, to come into the room and be very present. Because of course, if I become very present, so much is going on in the room. I don't know what you all are going through, and already, and then suddenly if I open up myself to that, it's like, I'm gonna take drugs now. Okay, y'all are going through a lot. No, that's not the thing. But at the same time, sometimes just a little bit. So when somebody can understand that I'm here and I'm present with you in the truest form, then you're able to also then carry it yourself. I think that we are too scared to carry each other because we think we have to stay with each other. It's as if I think, and it's more of a Christianity concept of that us carrying you means I'm going to carry your demons somewhere suddenly, and I'm a Christian and I come from that where people just fear like carrying anything. You're going to leave me with things, with your stuff, and your things mean evil. But sometimes maybe your things are good things. Maybe I can carry you for a while, and then it's a good thing that you can be able to then carry yourself later. And I think for me, that's what the reading did, especially for my students last year. Somebody carried the reading for them, and then they can do other things. They can cook. And a lot of especially I've got female students. I mean, I teach large classes, and the female students had to do a lot when they're at home. They do housework. Like their mothers don't care. They're like, yay, and you're in class. Bona, how fesa mo? Bona, how fesa ne? Nekitor bijana, ausine. Please, thanks. So no one cares that when you're in class and you're like, I'm in class, no. Ooh, okay. Bona hair. So how else can she do the reading with taking care of everything that she has to take care of? Somebody reads it to her. She can keep on doing the stuff. So somebody's carrying her. And I think that was a very generous part of the class itself, to do that for each other and then to share the readings with each other in that way. And in that way we can, we carry each other, we walk each other home. That concept of we walk each other home, we're doing whatever, but we're doing that for each other for a bit. And of course, none of them knew what everyone is going through, but for just a bit, at least somebody can also be involved in class.
Right. No, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm also thinking about, Christella's question in relation to debriefing. Sometimes you need to debrief even from a particular archive. So for instance, if you're dealing with particularly violent archives, say for instance, you are looking at archives that are related to slavery in South Africa, or all sorts of things, how do you debrief from, encountering those kind of stories? So you can think along those lines as well. And there's more from Christella to you, Doctor, saying that is so beautiful. Even food, there are so many memories linked to food, whether it's cooking, eating, or just sharing conversations over a meal. It is such an incredible way to create memories. And of course, just talking about the sense of smell as well, that you can be in a random environment and smell something from your mom or gran or family, something they used to cook, and it's like a flood of memories fill your head. In the same way, I feel like home has a smell. Other people coming into my house might not think about it like that, but my family knows, they understand. And Benjamin says the depersonalization of academic work in the university space is frustrating as well, but the shift has begun, I think. And I remember you, Dr. Lipere, actually, when at the launch of this book that everyone should get, at the launch, I was watching it online. I think you had it in Tembisa, right? With Kujo Green and everybody known to me, so who wrote the foreword. I remember you saying that coming into Wits University was quite strange for you because at times you had to play white characters. So again, taking your blackness and putting it in a box. And so often, even those of us who are not performers, often you encounter works, academic work that you're supposed to relate to, but actually there's something kind of like disconnected from your experience. So you struggle to kind of access the text because it's actually not written with you in mind. You realize after a while that some people are writing not with a girl like you in mind. And that can be so frustrating. Yeah.
It's very true, because I think part of the one text that made me come back to, and I was thinking about it last night, what's the one text that got me back into reading out loud was I Write What I Like. So before I was because we were struggling with whatever they've written, like, "Oh, I don't understand what these people are talking about." But then one day I was reading, because I always, I write what I like a Bible. I was one of those people who like, chapter, verse. Nico says Nico.
Right.
So then when I would read it out aloud, and it's written because it's written in speech form, it's written in spoken word form. He doesn't, and even when you see at the end, towards the end, it's the trial, and you can hear all the words are written in spoken word form. It suddenly brought me back to the idea that this was, and when you're reading it, you can't sit still. When you're reading it, you're like, oh, yes, yes, like, and if you, your preacher self, you wanna like, yes, let me tell you about this, right? And then suddenly you realize, and I think that's what made me realize that there is something about, because I'd become very upset with reading and not wanting to read and all of that. But I realized it became the thing why I was upset with reading was that it wasn't written for me, like what you're saying. And Baiko literally reminded me, Huti, yeah, I write what I like, and what I like is this. This is what I'm saying. I'm gonna say it, and this is what I'm saying.
And I teach what I like. I teach what I like.
Yeah, so definitely teach, and you're right. You must teach what you like, because
otherwise, what's the point? Because students are gonna be able to sense it, and they're gonna feel, disconnected. Absolutely. I'm so glad, Guti, you are also a lecturer, because you can bring these kind of knowledges into the classroom. Unlike some of us who were just so, alienated in the classroom, by the time you write, you don't even know who you are. You don't even write as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even recognize your own voice in your writing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also because of, so in the writing center, the Vets Writing Center, what they do, which also brought back this idea of reading out loud, is if anyone has ever been to the writing center, you bring your work. So you come, you say, oh, I've got a problem. My lecturer says my essay is shit. And they say, okay, bring your essay, it's shit. Let's see your shitty essay. And then they make you read it out loud, which is amazing. It's painful, but it is the best thing ever for anyone to, what you're talking about finding your voice. You read it out loud and you realize that, one, I don't know what I'm saying, and I don't know. And then what am I saying? And I'm not Judith Butler, and I don't know, and I'm not writing like Judith. And then I don't know, what do I want? And then you realize that you have to find, and what they sit with you is that you have to find your voice, because you come back whenever with your appointments, with your sessions, and you read out your work. Most students don't come back because of, I'm saying, the defragmentizing of you. Like they go, no, I am not worthy to have a voice. So they don't come back because they go, no, I don't want to hear my voice, and I sound horrible and I can't write, and they never come back. And I've learned, like, and I used to work also at the writing center after I went through my horror of listening to my own voice, that it is such a freeing thing, because even if you just a slightness of just hearing your delicious voice, because you're like, oh, get now, like a sentence, and you're so you start writing, I write it, therefore, thus, moreover, thus me, because you find your learn henceforth, but yeah, anyway.
Oh, beautiful. No, Dr. Lipere, I do actually realize that we are a minute over our time. So if you will allow me to just read the last comment from Christella and Letabo and Kumo. Christella says that is exactly the reason I did not go into clinical psychology. I hate how disembodied you are required to be. Ethically, at least, there's definitely a space and need for that. But I think I am too much of an empath to take myself to that place. hearing you speak, I resonate not only with what you are saying, but also how you are saying it. Thank you for being so open and willing to explain and for presenting it in such a personal and simple yet profound way. People are talking about how, yes, such a vibe. People are laughing. Akokete says, I laughed so hard when a writing consultant asked me to read my work out loud, but it helps. Letabo says, I'm laughing so hard right now. I often find myself zoning out when it comes to academic writing, right? Once I read what I wrote, I become so shocked at my work. Benjamin is actually laughing, right? Yeah. No, thank you so much, Dr. Lipere. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our students before you continue living your fabulous life?
Yeah, please submit your reading. Please read and submit to us at embodiedreading@gmail.com. And we're looking forward to hearing all of you read. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be academic. It can be your own writing. And you'll see some of the other people have submitted their own writing. I had students think about body parts and what that body part would say to them. And they wrote back and they read it back to me. So please do submit anything. And it can be something that you're reading right now and you want to share. And you never know, like it could be, it's opening up a lot of other ways, other readings to other people that I wouldn't have read. Like I would have struggled to read, and somebody opens it up and and read it. So try out a hard reading. I was very appreciative. We didn't get to talk about it because I talked too much. I was very appreciative that you sent the Peggy Caesar reading because I've been reading it, but I started reading Peggy in varsity and I struggled with him throughout. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't read it. And I was in his class and he's like, reveal it. And I'm just like, I don't know a thing that you're saying. Oh my God. So I'm very grateful that I can now literally indulge in that reading so much and really sit with it because I've been working through it because of the work that I'm doing right now around postcards and the archival and the body as an archive, and having to work through him. It's been such an amazing thing. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for letting me come through and letting me and my network come in and out and do.
I mean, people are thanking you, Christella. Shaifali says, thank you for the session. Letabo, thank you so much. I honestly enjoyed the session. Banzile, thank you for a wonderful session. Yeah, everyone, Cameron, same thing, Kate, such a nice session. So thank you so much for honoring us with your time,
Thank you for inviting
for spending. We spend time, meaning it's very, very important. It's like a currency. How you spend your time is how you spend your life, basically. So thank you for sharing your life with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that is Dr. Lipere, everyone. For those of you who want to have a conversation afterwards, you